So with carbohydrates, do we need to start thinking about what sources? Because obviously you've touched on there about you'd err towards the side like the rices, the noodles rather than the potatoes. Does that mean I should start increasing my sweet intake as well, like Haribo's, like Tang Fast sticks and stuff like that? Should I be increasing that around my workout nutrition, or is that just an old fallacy which I really want to try and maintain and hold on to?
Oof. The look, the thing is that for me, I'm always going to err on the side of the best quality that you can
Yeah.
eat. However, I do understand that as you get to higher calorie intakes, it's challenging. Do you mean like eating in a surplus, especially if you're a big guy or girl, getting up to a higher calorie intake? I find anywhere over 3,000, it does become challenging to eat from like quote unquote healthy foods. Like you do need to start to include foods that are kind of less nutrient dense. So that's where then, like you say, using things around workouts that are very high in carbohydrate, low in protein, low in fat, then will help you to provide carbohydrates for your for energy for your training session. So yeah, but I don't want to give people license to just start smashing
Yeah.
Haribo before
Yeah.
they work out, because that's not the thing that they need to focus on at the start. Carbohydrates are probably the most underrated thing for muscle building and getting stronger, in my opinion. I know there's people on YouTube, keto gains and all of this, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not. All of the literature, all of the research, all of the years that I've been coaching nutrition, the people that have gained the better progress have been the people that eat and more carbohydrates. Now, there's two
Mm.
reasons for this. Firstly, you need energy. Okay, you need energy to train, and if you don't, you are walking uphill with a car on your back in a truck. Like, it's tough work
Yeah.
training consistently. Okay, because we need consistency for building muscle. It's hard training consistently to see progressive overload. You can get away with it for short periods of time, but I just don't think you can get away with it for a long period of time to see sustained progress. So you need it for energy, okay? But you need it for recovery and protein sparing. So carbs will spare protein to do the job that protein actually wants to do. If you're very low carbohydrate, your body will find energy from somewhere, okay? And protein can be converted into gluconeogenesis, but it's a terrible thing for for us to be doing. We don't want to be doing that because it's a very inefficient process, and also we're using the thing that we're trying to build as an energy source, muscle. We don't want to be doing that. So the benefits of eating higher carbohydrates, so up around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grams per kilo per body weight, can be that it increases insulin. We know that insulin is an anabolic hormone. It stores, okay? So we need insulin to grow. It increases glycogen, and this helps with recovery. It helps you to recover faster so you can then train faster, more frequently. And it also helps to lower cortisol, which we know that we don't want cortisol. We need it for very short periods of time to help mobilize energy, but we don't need constantly elevated levels because it's catabolic. It will break your muscle tissue down, and carbohydrates increase insulin, and insulin helps to lower cortisol. So this is why carbohydrates for me are just so underutilized when we're trying to build muscle. And those that are saying that they've hit plateaus and that they can't see any progress, most of the time people don't eat low protein. I don't see. If you are a person that's training and you have gone on to try to get stronger, I don't think you ever have an issue of eating too low protein. I probably think you're eating too few carbs. And if you do this, you will see progress. Okay, it's providing the body with the state to build muscle. Okay, if glycogen is full, your body's like, yeah, let's go. I can go. I can train. I can build. Like I've got, you know, I'm in a state ready to build muscle. all the time I see people go into the gym and they walk in with this like blue powder in a shaker and be like chugging this pre-workout that's got 0 carbs in and a ton of stimulants, and they're chasing the pump. I'm like, if you chucked 50, 60, 70 grams of carbs in that, I'm telling you, you ain't going to be able to fit in that t-shirt. The pump is going to be so real. Like, you will get stronger if you fuel your sessions with carbohydrates. And people are scared. And this is what we kind of spoke about earlier. Like, we're scared of getting fat because that's what we've been taught that happens when we eat carbohydrates. If you follow any diet at the start and you increase your carbohydrates, you will gain weight. And that's mostly due to water, because you're going to increase your glycogen levels and the amount of food that's in your gut. Okay. You haven't stuck on 2 kilos of body fat in 4 days. Okay. It will, the first, second, and third, and fourth week of any diet, when you start to increase your carbohydrate, that's the true kind of test. That's where you'll start to kind of see where you're going. So don't worry about the first week, but you will feel benefit if you start to increase this. And all of the research suggests the same. Okay. You can build it. You can build muscle when you follow a ketogenic diet. Okay. If stimulus is there, training is there, protein is high, calories are high, but it's like getting to the top of the Empire State Building. All right. Keto is taking the stairs. Carbs is taking the lift.
Yeah.
You can get there. You can get there, right? It's going to be bloody hard work, and you are going to be doing it in so much more of a longer time frame. So for me, anyone that's struggling, like, eat good quality carbohydrates first. So like the whole food sources, try to get it up to maybe the higher levels of what I've just mentioned there. So maybe you're looking at 5 grams, 6 grams, 7 grams. Okay. Yep. Maybe start on your training days and then edge it up to every day. This would be something that I would definitely think that most people are missing if they've hit a plateau.
So just what you said there was kind of slightly answers my question, but I'd like it to be a bit clearer. Is there a case for some lower carbohydrate days to increase insulin sensitivity, so that you said there about on the training day to have higher carbohydrates, and then you want to be upping them on the non-training days as well? So obviously your overall caloric intake for the week will be nice and high, but would there be benefit of having, say, lower carbohydrate days on your rest days and having higher carbohydrate days, equating your weekly calories to be the same?
I love this question, Rob. I love this question. I knew you was going to ask me it as well. I only suggested that was because when people start to try and eat a lot across every day, it's challenging. And again, we want to still make sure that we're not just going into this chaos of just eat whatever I want, dirty bulk. So at that, like, there is case to increase it on training days as the first step. That's what would be my suggestion, because that's when the body is placed under stress, and this is where we need energy. Okay. When people cut their calories or lower their calories, potentially carbohydrates, on rest days, I think this is a strategy that can be utilized if you find that you don't have negative reactions of going into your session following a rest day with low energy and sluggishness. If you can, when you say cut your calories, it's not being 50 grams of carbs or less. You should still eat carbohydrates on your rest day. It's maybe just dropping them down to, again, if we zoom out, it's balancing your calories across the week, across the 2 weeks, across the month. So it's a strategy that I think can work if you're inclined to be able to kind of do that easily. So now we spoke about doing that because you're pretty dialed in with your nutrition and you understand how to manipulate it. For me, what I would suggest for people that are just getting started is to not put your carbs and calories super high on training days, is to balance them out across the week. Okay. What that then does is it gives a more balanced approach so that we know that on rest days, you're still recovering. You know, all of the studies show that depending on the volume and intensity and what type of exercise that you've done, it can take up to 72 hours to fully recover from a training session. So if you're cutting your calories on a rest day, or you're limiting your body's potential for recovery. So this is what I see all the time, mainly with CrossFitters,
Yeah.
that they cut the calories loads on a rest day, and then they come in on Monday morning or whenever, or Friday, because International Rest Day on Thursday, and they go, oh man, I always feel sluggish. I always feel sluggish after a rest day, and they're like, oh, that's when then they justify it to themselves that they don't take rest days, and I'm like, well, stop eating like a 13-year-old boy on your
Yeah.
rest day. Eat some carbohydrates, and you'll come into your session after a day off feeling refreshed, feeling full of glycogen and ready and recovered, rather than just getting through and then overstimulating that session. So for me, I prefer more balance across the week,
Yeah.
because I think it covers both performance and recovery, as opposed to just hitting high amounts on training days. For me, focuses more on that session, and potentially impairs people's recovery.
So
If that makes sense.
on from that makes perfect sense. So then obviously your recommendation is, especially if you're starting out, make sure you've got a nice balanced approach through the week, get those calories high, get the carbohydrates high, get your protein set, and obviously worry about fat, which we'll go into in a bit. How about so obviously with the insulin sensitivity part, and again, I don't know how essential this is. If we kept the calories balanced throughout the week, and on the not on the rest days, the fats are higher, and maybe your protein maybe a little bit higher, and your carbohydrates are a little bit lower. So then to then improve insulin sensitivity on the days where we're training, so we can utilize those carbohydrates better. If calories equal the same, would that be an approach that, if you're someone that's a little bit more seasoned and have a little bit of a better understanding of their nutrition, could that be a strategy to potentially get more out of your nutrition on your training days?
Potentially it could be. In terms of insulin sensitivity, there's dropping carbohydrates is one way that you can increase sensitivity, but you can also do, when you train, you become more insulin sensitive. Like, there's other ways of doing that. So I don't think the reasoning behind doing it for increasing insulin sensitivity is right. Like, the research shows that the more carbs you eat, the more carbohydrate oxidation that happens. So you're better at burning carbohydrates and utilizing it for energy. So dropping it, I don't know. I think it's a method to manipulate calories, as opposed to focusing on insulin sensitivity.
Okay. Okay.
That would be my opinion on it.
Unless you really
in
need
the
to
end,
improve insulin sensitivity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Unless you need to improve insulin sensitivity, which then losing weight is probably going to be the best way to do it. So
this is the
being
wrong
in a
episode for you.
surplus is not. You're trying to do everything, and it's not going to happen. So
listen to our calorie
there,
fucking
you got to look at your. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where then, like you say, Ash, there you got to, losing weight is going to be the biggest driver for improving that.
Yeah, brilliant. And on the carbs, protein, we talked about even meal spacing and spreading the protein across the day. What's the thought with carbs? Because you hear a lot of people talking about pre and post workout meals. Should we be putting most of our carbs there? Is it a good idea to have any zero carb meals if you're trying to get bigger or stronger?
In terms of zero carb meals, I mean, that comes down to preference. Like, as long as you're hitting your overall carb intake, then you're happy to have zero carb meals. If you like to have like a lighter dinner, for example, you find that helps you to not feel full in the evening or whatever. Or if you'd like to start the day with more protein and fat, then do that. But then this is where I was talking about that disparity between what you're doing and the goal and your progress. If you're eating low, zero calorie or zero carb meals, and you're saying to me, I'm not making progress with my muscle building, and I'm struggling through sessions, I haven't increased my percentages in 4 weeks, then I'm like, well, eat more, and start with eating more carbohydrates. Like, your habits that you're doing are not conducive to the goals that you want to achieve. So it's completely fine to do that if you're still seeing progress and if you hit the calorie target, carbohydrate target across your day. Pre and post training, I think, is when people say get most of their carbohydrates in it, it depends on the amount that you're eating. I like to distribute it. I like to skew it a little bit around training, definitely. But I don't think just trying to eat as many carbs as you can around training is a sensible strategy. So the body can only digest a certain amount of carbohydrates per hour anyway. So, you're up around, depending on how well you've trained your gut and what type of carbohydrates you're eating, you can kind of digest around 60 to 70 grams per hour, sometimes 80. So if you have a mixture of fructose and glucose, so this is why a lot of the sports gels that you'll see, endurance ranges, will have a mixture, 2-to-1 glucose to fructose, because that's how you can increase the absorption rate to higher amounts. So if you're looking at putting most of your carbs and you've got to eat 400 grams of carbs, then you're eating 100 grams in an hour, you're not going to be utilizing that. So don't do that. So for me, I would make sure that you are fueling your session. So when I say that, I mean eating pre-workout. And all you 6 a.m.ers and 5 a.m.ers will be like, well, how do I do that? Well, use liquid nutrition.
Yeah.
Like, take a carb powder, use a sports drink, fruit juice. Like there's ways that you should do this, and you will feel the benefit. And then, yes, eating some carbohydrates in that post-workout window within an hour is a sensible strategy, because what we're looking to do is we're not just looking to help. It's not an important thing when you're training 3 times a week and just looking to be healthy. But if you're looking to get seriously strong and you're looking to put serious muscle on, then take advantage of nutrient timing. Like, anabolic window exists. It's just that most people don't need to worry about it. But if you're struggling, hitting a plateau, or you want to really maximize your performance and recovery, then take advantage. Putting in 50, 60 grams of carbs with some protein in that hour period after your training session will benefit. Will benefit your recovery, will benefit your progress, and then you can distribute the rest across the day as you see fit.
Yeah. That's something I want to go back to that you said earlier about it's difficult to eat a big surplus with nutrient-dense foods. So you usually turn to less nutrient-dense foods. I just thought it was an interesting way to describe it, because what is it about nutrient-dense foods that's hard to overeat on? And in my bro science understanding of it, it's basically when food's nutrient dense, your body knows it's getting what it needs. So it's got what it needs, so it doesn't want for any more. Whereas if you eat low nutrient dense foods, even though the calories are coming in, it doesn't have the essential nutrients that it actually needs. So that's why you still stay hungry, because your body's like, say you've eaten a bag of sugar, shitloads of calories, but no nutrition, no nutrients. So you will still be hungry, even though you might have hit your calorie target for the day. Is there any truth in that?
Not to say that I don't agree with that, because I do agree with it. I think that's quite subjective. I don't think it's science backed. I don't think the body knows that sugar doesn't have any nutrients in it. I think it knows that it doesn't have any protein in it, and it knows it doesn't have any fat in it. So it spikes your blood sugar, and then you're hungry again an hour later. Like, when I say nutrient dense, most of the time that's in a whole food source. So it has a blend of different things. So if we took, fruit juice compared to the whole fruits, again, like, the composition of that's where I think the body is then like, if you ate, 2 apples, you would feel fuller than drinking the equivalent of fruit juice of 2 apples. So it's the composition of food that I think is the challenging thing, that's the thing I'm talking about in terms of when I say nutrient dense. That's it's harder to eat that higher amounts. So when we go to less nutrient dense foods, these are normally more highly palatable. So they're probably in lower protein, so less satiating, and they are normally more refined. So again, they're easier for the body to break down and digest. So again, we're not getting that fullness. And so that's when it's easier to hit them. And when we say nutrient dense, like you say, it has more micros as well as the macronutrients in it. And we do need that. Like, again, this building muscle is an intensive process. We need to make sure that we are providing the body with the micros as well as the macronutrients. And as long as you have those fundamentals, then yes, then getting to the higher calorie targets would then be a requirement to move towards like some of these, like say, quote unquote, less energy dense foods, but they're a functional food. Then they're helping you to achieve a certain goal. So, you know, that can be fueling sessions or just helping you hit a high calorie intake.
That kind of makes me think of like if I'm having quite highly palatable foods, I can knock back a lot more quicker before my body realizes how full I am. And an example of that is, I know I've been to, so I saw Ash went and had a couple of burgers yesterday, and I know I've been to, say, Honest Burger, and I've had 2 Honest Burgers and the, say, 2 plates of chips, and I don't get full until, or I don't realise I've probably eaten too much until I'm like halfway through the second portion of chips. So I've eaten both burgers, I've gone through a portion of chips. The main reason is it's just because it's so salty, but I do like that salt. But I'm going through it, so I'm just drinking. So it's like, when it's hot, and I know like with Krispy Kremes, it's like the ratio of carbs to fats is just right for like the signaling apparently in your brain for it to realize, so you can knock them back until then suddenly bang, the sugar hits you, and you're like, I feel fucked. So it's in like, it's so easy to overconsume these foods. So that could always be a strategy if you are someone that does struggle, because you know you can eat a bolus amount and then hopefully you can then digest it and feel ready to go again a little bit later.
Yeah, this goes into the slippery slope of dirty bulking. I'm not telling people to eat ice cream, burgers to bulk, to hit their calories. However, but you're absolutely right. Like highly palatable foods will pretty much be carbohydrates and fats, because they're very easy to overconsume. There's a lot of stuff on food science and the way that our body digests, you know, and processes it that is way out of my knowledge base. So I'm not going to go down that route, but again, it's also the rate that you eat. Like we eat burgers relatively quickly, you know, like as opposed to if we made that into, you know, steak and, you know, a bit of bread and, you know, separated those down and made it into a slightly different thing. So if you had steak and new potatoes, you know, and match the carbs to it, it would take you a lot longer to eat and you'd feel a lot fuller than eating 2 burgers. Yeah, because the rate that we eat, like the body hasn't registered. So, you know, it comes to that. So yeah, it all comes down to trying to eat the correct things for me as your foundation. If you can base the majority of your muscle building diet, strength based diet with good quality whole foods, then 100%. When you get to a higher calorie target, you need to be including, you know, other foods. But this is where you can still include whole foods, so whole milk, you know, like blended fruits, you know, like seeds and nuts, and, you know, liquid stuff like maple syrup and honey and coconut milk and stuff like this. Is a very energy dense, but they're still good quality. They're still going to provide you good quality nutrients. So for me, that's how I would approach things with people.
Yeah. We hinted at it earlier, just before we should move on from carbs because we're going to run out of time otherwise. Something we touched on earlier was the difference between eating for strength versus eating for size, and what would be some differences in approach with carbohydrates if you're eating for strength versus eating for size, if any.
If any. So this is where I would undulate potentially, because strength is all about performance. So if you can fuel your sessions and get the benefits of having more carbohydrates around your session so you can hit a higher output and do better in your training sessions, and that's your key thing. You know, you could be whatever body composition you want, but if your strength numbers are going up. So for me, I think that's where an undulating approach could be better for carbohydrates, and it's also where I would then prioritize them more around your training sessions. If you're looking to just get stronger as opposed to getting bigger. So that would be the 2 key differences between.
Would you go for faster carbs as well around training? Or
yeah, definitely, mate.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, this is where you can use gels, liquid nutrition, you know, so carb powders. And, you know, if you're training in the day, then utilizing, like you say, fast acting fruits, like, you know, and these types of things where, again, you're not going to be having loads of fiber and loads of protein and loads of fat in them, because they're going to be, blood glucose is going to be high, so you're going to be able to utilize it as energy. So yeah, that'd be the two key things. There's a really cool graph and study that I will send you boys, in terms of, they did a estimated proportion of total strength gains over time, over 5 years, and what contributed to it. And as it kind of, in the early stages, and you guys would be much more be able to provide insight on this, it was coordination, kind of neurological output, and activation. In the first kind of week, month, 2 to 3 months, hypertrophy plays such a little role in terms of people's strength gains. And then it was only a 1 year and 5 years that it played a role, kind of a more of a significant role. But even then, it's such a small amount that actually it's, there's so many different things that improve when you're just looking at strength and 1RM, 3RM, that again, you don't have to get bigger to get stronger. And this is what that 75 kilo geezer that's lifting 400 kilos can attest to. But often, like you say, we can get stronger without getting bigger. This is what I always tell the footballers as well, and they don't believe me. But
100%.
I haven't won that battle in 15 years, so I don't think I'm going to win it.